There's a story in Scripture that's a little bit like this, where Jesus stands up for a woman. They catch a woman in the act of adultery. They drag her out of the adultery bed, out of bed with her lover, and they bring her and they throw her before the feet of Christ. And they say to Jesus, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act. Moses says someone like this should be stoned. But Rabbi, sarcastically, what do you say? And he gets down onto the ground and he starts writing in the dust with his finger. And we don't know what he was writing in the dust, but many commentaries say that he was writing the sins of the people who had accused this woman in the dust. And then he stands up and he says to them, whoever of you is without sin, let him throw the first stone. One by one, her accusers leave. And Jesus turns to the woman and he says to her, woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you? She answers him, no one, Lord. He says to her, neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. I want us to take a few moments to just pay attention. Jesus says, where are those accusers of yours? Has no one condemned you? She could have said, they condemned me, but that's in the past. That's gone. They accused me, but they are gone. What Scripture is trying to reveal to us, what God is trying to reveal to us here, at a different time, the disciples went preaching. Jesus sends out the disciples. He sent out the 12, they came back. Then he sent out the 70 disciples. And they can't come back, and they are over the moon. Because guess what? The demons are subject to us. When we can cast out demons, right? And they're telling this stuff to Jesus, and Jesus tells them, don't rejoice in this, but rejoice that your names are kingdom in heaven, written in the kingdom of heaven. And he tells them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Most of the commentators believe that this has to do with the incarnation. That when Jesus was incarnate, he restored creation, and Satan no longer had power over it. And so he lost his authority. The message here is that where Jesus is, there is no accusation. Where Jesus is present, there is no accusation. Because he justifies. He justifies. If he justifies, St. Paul says, who will condemn? No one. If the judge justifies you, then who will condemn you? No one. He doesn't justify by some complex legal argument. It's his very presence that justifies. It's his very presence that sets that which was askew aright. Justifies, makes just, makes orthogonal, makes straight. It's his very presence. By his grace, he fills in the gaps with his grace. I like doing home renos. I like fixing things and building things and stuff like that. You know, oh my goodness, when I discovered what silicone can do, you know, right? Caulking, you can fill anything with that. I'm not suggesting that you should be a poor craftsman and fill the gaps in, but that's what they do. It's like the two pieces of what's it called? Not the baseboard. Yeah, the two pieces of baseboard. Yeah, that's the builder right here. See, right? They're like an inch apart practically. It's, don't worry, we'll fill it with caulking. You're like, what? You know, and they do, and it barely shows. I mean, unless you're looking for it, right? Jesus is caulking for your life, right? He comes, he fills it. You got a little bit too much here. He sands it off. You've got a little bit of a gap here. He fills it in. By His grace, by His grace, by His grace, He whatever was wonky, He straightens it out and He aligns it and He fills it and He makes it perfect. Right? So then there is no more accusation. By His very presence, ontologically, in the essence of things, He fills the gaps and He makes you whole and perfect. So there's no accusation. But that's not how we feel. Sometimes we feel like something's going wrong. Sometimes we feel like everything's going wrong. In fact, if we look in the Psalms, there's so many different Psalms where the psalmist is saying, everybody is against me. I picked just one Psalm, Psalm 35, verse 15, but you'll find that there's many different Psalms that are saying the same things. You know, this one, for example, says, but in my adversity they rejoiced and gathered together. Attackers gathered against me, and I did not know it. They tore at me and did not cease. With ungodly mockers at feasts, they gnashed at me with their teeth. Right? I'm surrounded from all sides, and I feel like those who are accusing me are all around me. Right? Have no fear. Have no fear. Have no fear at all. Right? But the problem with this is not only when the accusers are outward. I mean, that woman had a problem. Lest Jesus be there, she would have been buried under a pile of rubble by now, right? So she had a problem, right? But you and I have a problem too. Maybe nobody's trying to stone you. Maybe nobody's quoting the law of Moses to you. Maybe nobody is, trying to actually kill you. Maybe, right? But sometimes we have accusations against us at work, at home, in our family. The worst of all, and that's what we're going to talk about next week, is our own thoughts. We're going to talk about our accusing thoughts and how to deal with our accusing thoughts, how to bring the incarnate presence of Christ in the presence of those thoughts. We'll talk about that next week. Today, I just want to talk mostly about Jesus because He's so beautiful. In fact, if you look at the scene of His arrest in the Gospel of John, you find another hint at exactly what I'm saying. Jesus is with His disciples in Gethsemane, in the garden, and He's prayed His heart out. He's prayed until His sweats are like great drops of blood. And Judas comes with a detachment of troops with, swords and torches and clubs to come and to capture Him. And they come and they approach Jesus and His disciples. And as they approach Jesus and His disciples, you would think that the disciples would say, okay, we're going to make a plan here. Okay, one of us is going to pretend to be Jesus, then the other one's going to pretend to be Jesus, then we're going to fool them, then we're going to run in different directions. That'll give Jesus enough time they don't even have time to make a plan, right? I don't know what the disciples were doing. It's not recorded, right? But what happens as Judas and the detachment of troops are coming? What does Jesus do? Jesus steps forward and He says, I understand you have some concerns. No, sorry, that was from the previous scene. That was my dad in the principal's office, right? But that's what He says. He says, whom are you seeking? Jesus steps forward. Jesus sees the lion coming and He walks towards the lion. Jesus sees the fire. He walks towards the fire. He steps forward for you. For you. How do I know it's for you? So they say, we're seeking Jesus of Nazareth. He says, I am He. He says, I am He, and topic for another sermon. They fall over. At His saying, I am He, they fall over. They get themselves back together. He says to them, whom are you seeking? They say, Jesus of Nazareth. He tells them, I have told you, I am He. Therefore, if you seek me, let these go their way, Jesus says. Who are you after? Huh? Who are you after? Me? Okay, take me. Let these guys go. Let these guys go. Jesus steps forward. Jesus steps into the fight for you. Jesus steps into the fight for you. Jesus wants to step into the fight of accusation for you. There is no accuser who can stand up to Jesus. We're going to talk about that next week or the week after. There are beautiful, beautiful promises about how no accusation against him will stand from the prophecies, but we'll talk about that, right? The problem, I can't help it. The problem, sorry, this is for third week, but we'll review, right? The problem is there's two prophecies in the book of Isaiah that say no accusation against him, no banner formed against him, no weapon formed against him will stand, right? The problem is that we sometimes appropriate these verses to ourselves. It's not meant for me. No, I stand up, I get myself into a fight and I get clobbered sometimes. Right? So what? Scripture's untrue? No, this is written about Jesus. This is written about Jesus. But if I am in Jesus, no accusation against him will stand. And thus no accusation against me in him will stand. We'll talk more about it third week. Right? But for now, I want you to see that Jesus is courageous. Jesus steps into the fight for you. He doesn't step away from the fight. He doesn't run away from the fight. In the book of Revelation, actually, I don't want to scare you, it says, "Cursed are the cowardly." Jesus is not a coward. He's brave, and he will step into the fight for you, to the fight to the death. Well, he was getting arrested to what? To go to the theme park? No, he's getting arrested to his death, which he knew very well, right? Jesus is very, very courageous, and he steps forward. He steps forward for you, for your sake. And that's why there is no accuser that stands before him. You know the word Satan, when he says, "I saw Satan fall like lightning," the fathers understand this. The word Satan, it can be a proper name, right? Like Smith, John Smith could be a name of a person, Mr. Smith, right? Or Smith, he is a smith, like a blacksmith, right? So the word Satan is either the name of the demon or also means accuser or opposer. I saw the accuser fall like lightning when he was incarnate. When he was incarnate and he restored all things. So, what do we have to do to wrap up? What do we have to do, you and me? We have to draw near. St. James tells us, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Flee from the devil and he will flee from you. Draw near to him against whom there is no accusation. When you feel that you're being accused, draw near to him that no accusation can stand before him. Does that make sense? When you feel that accusation is coming towards you, draw near to him that you know no accusation can stand against him. Draw near to him and the accusation falls. We're going to talk very specifically about that about our own thoughts next week. Also, remember this promise that Moses says to the people of Israel as they're standing before the Red Sea in front of them, and Pharaoh and his chariots closing in behind them. And Moses says to them, "The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace." The Lord shall fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. Hold on to that which gives you peace, which is the Lord, and let him fight the battle for you. I tend to step into the battle when I'm not ready, or to flee the battle because I'm scared, right? I'm not here to judge you. I do it too, right? What I'm saying is, rather than run into the battle when I'm not prepared, or run away from the battle because I'm scared, run to Jesus. Run to Jesus. The instinct to run is there. Run to Jesus when fear arrests us and when accusation attacks us. Finish with an illustration. In some First Nations communities, there's a rite of passage into manhood where at a certain age, they'll take a teenage boy and they'll put him through all of these different exercises of hunting and trapping and fishing and all of these different things. If he completes them all successfully, they'll have, a wonderful celebration around the fire at night. And at the end of that celebration, the boy gets blindfolded and is led into a thick forest to spend the night in the forest, blindfolded. They take the blindfold off in the forest, to spend the night in the forest alone, to fend for himself. But there's a secret that he doesn't know. There's a secret that he doesn't know. What if he wasn't ready for manhood? Get eaten alive? No, they would never do that. There's a secret that he doesn't know, is that standing just a few paces away, bow and arrow ready, is who? His father, in the dark, watching him, making sure he'll be okay. The same is true for you and is true for me. Don't run into the fire. Don't run away from it either. Run to the one against whom no accusation can stand. Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.